Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Soup Bowl. I am your host, Renee Murdoch, and I am so glad that you are here with me, that you are doing life with me, that you are liking, that you're subscribing, that you're doing all the great and wonderful things, and that you're also sharing. Let's go. And you're also just sharing your thoughts and your views on what we've been chatting up, and I appreciate it. Taking inventory. So keep sending them in, keep them coming, keep them coming. I love to hear what you all are thinking about as well. And so as I share my heart with you, I'm so happy to hearing about your heart as well. So look, we know that when you get in the Soup Bowl, that things are bound to get messy out here in these streets. You hear what I'm saying? There's a lot going on out here. There is a lot happening. And so, yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. There's just a lot happening out there today. And so we don't know what is to come, right? We don't know what is going to happen, next month, next year, whatever. But we just know that we just need to stay in a peaceful mindset. We need to be people that are always searching for peace. Always searching for peace. When we have an alt with someone or feeling some type of way about somebody or with someone, we need to look for a peaceable resolution, right? I was watching a movie, and it doesn't have much, but Murdoch just really likes movies. And so he said he was waiting for me to be available to watch this movie, and so we watched this movie. And, the person, one of the characters was like, I need peace. I am searching for peace. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not messing with anybody. I just want some peace. Can we relate to that? I think some of us can relate to that, seriously though. That we're just really looking to stay, in a peaceful position, in a peaceful mindset, right? Because we don't want all this. It's really not worth it, right? Is it really worth it? It's not. It's not. I had a situation, even with myself, that I had to have a crucial conversation, right? I had to have a crucial conversation because I was like, I need you to know my heart in this situation and how I'm feeling about this, right? And so I was very patient to have this conversation, and I had this conversation with the person, and after having the conversation, I can tell that based upon their answers, that it was not genuine on their part, and they really still didn't understand my point in us even having this conversation. So I had to say, am I going to sit here and try to convince this person, or I'm going to just let it be where it's at and just so we can remain peaceful? And I took option B. Because there just wasn't no point in, trying to get the person to really understand what they did and, violating trust and things of that nature. I just had the time. All right, so what are we going to get in today? It's been a minute, and one of my things or hobbies that I do is I read. And there's a lot of things that I've been reading, but I'm going to share some with you later. But I feel like that we're in a situation, right? We're in this season of a lot of grieving is happening, right? A lot of grief is going on. And I'm not talking about just the grief of losing a person, right, to death, but just in a place of just losing something, right? Like I don't even think people realize the grief that we all happen to go through, and that it's real. It is literally real, and everybody's grief is just a little bit different, right? Everybody's grief is a little bit different, and so we have to be willing to give people that space and that time that they need, right, for that particular thing. And so I read this book. I went and got this book. I was in the bookstore, and I was in there for something else, and I'm already familiar with the particular author. And so I just happened to pick the book up, and I read it, and I was like, huh? And then I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I started flipping through the pages, and if I read so many pages, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy this book, right? And so I ended up buying this book, and it wasn't too long after I had, lost my mother, and I was, going through the grieving process. So my grieving process is a little different than everybody else, and I also felt like, is there something wrong with me? Is that because I'm not feeling this way? I'm not doing this, or these type of things, right? That normally people would say that this is how you should be acting when you lose someone, right? Especially if it's your mother and you all had, a relationship, whatever. But this is a book that I read, A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis, right? He has a whole plethora of books out there, and I don't want to say whole plethora of books, right? But the book is pretty old, but of course, it's been, republished again, and it's not that big of a book. I think it only has like, I want to say 100 pages, but it's not even 100 pages. I think it's like 75 pages. So it's not a long read either. And the great thing I want to say about this book, other than it's not a long read, for those of you that's just like, oh, another book, I got to read this, but it is it is a really good book. Okay, I just want to say that it is a really good book. And so with that being said, is that I just want you to think about, again, what does, grief looks like for you if you've been through grief, if you're going through grief. And I want to talk about this book because I think it's a really good book for anyone to go pick it up if you have went through a loss. And it's not about the loss of a person, but through a loss. Like a lot of people have lost their jobs. You have lost, someone based on a relationship because you lost the job, right? You could have lost a friendship, someone that you were extremely close with for years, and then you all have just, parted ways. Nothing, bad, right, or crazy went on. It's just that you just literally started going another direction, and that person is going in a different, direction as well. So there's totally nothing wrong with that at all. And so I am really thirsty right now, you all. I left my water bottle over there. So hold on a second while I get this water bottle because I need a drink. I love you guys. I love you guys. All right, everyone. Thank you for just rocking with me and taking that pause because I was really thirsty. And the thing about it, guess where my water bottle was? Nope, that's not where it was. Nope, that wasn't it either. Okay, all right, so we can just stop the guessing game. It was literally in the car. I literally left it in the car. So that's why I probably forgot, because normally when I come in, I set it on the counter over there and it just wasn't there. But I was thirsty, y'all. Okay, so again, getting back to this, this process of grief, right? It's not just about losing a person, but just going through a loss. Going through a loss period can be difficult and challenging. It can last for some time, right? And so we don't need to put a time stamp on it, but as we go through the grieving process, right, there is a healthy way of doing it. And so if you think that you can grieve without talking to someone, a professional, someone that is licensed and is experienced in this, right? Not so much of your girlfriend or your guy friend or whatever. But, you know, those are great places to have a safe place, to have certain conversations, but to kind of really just talk things through and to make sure that you are being honest with yourself and you're being honest with those individuals that's around you, right? The key thing is to don't stop living. That is one of the key things, is to don't stop living and to acknowledge your feelings, because you need to acknowledge your feelings at every turn. Acknowledge it, right? Some people like to journal, right? Some people like to sing. Some people like to draw. Some people might even like to work out. Whatever your thing is that you need to express, right? Your emotions, right? And to get you back in tune or whatever, or to deal with sometimes maybe not getting to say what you wanted to say, right, to the individuals or whatever, you know, whatever the thing may be. And so again, this book, right, I'm going to read you a part or a couple pieces in here. And just to know, yes, C.S. Lewis is known as a Christian writer. And so he does write I don't know what happened. My apologies. But we're not sure. But C.S. Lewis is a Christian writer. And a lot of things that he writes about is his viewpoint, right, and his relationship with God. There's some good things, some good nuggets in there. I started reading him in reference to, right, leadership. But he writes some really good things in there in reference to whether you are a Christian or not a Christian. But definitely if you are a Christian, I would say pick up some of his literature. I think he has, in the back of his book, he literally has like a lot of things that he talks about, right? The problem of pain, mere Christianity, that one is a really good one. The Great Divorce, and also The Weight of Glory, the Screw Tape of Letters, Miracles. So these are really good. You can get all of them in one set, or you can just get them one by one, depending on what you're looking for, right? So there's a couple of things I want to read in here. And so in the introduction, right, it says, this book, right, is not your ordinary grief book, which I don't think it is either, so I think that's why I got it. But it's rather the passionate result of a brave man turning to face his agony and examine it in order that he might further understand what is required of us in living this life in which we have expect the pain and the sorrow of the loss of those whom we love. One, it's a man. It's number one, it's a man. And he was able to express in some sort, right, in written form that was shared with us, his experience as he was grieving. And a lot of times, men do not like to express their emotions. They don't want to see, they don't want, right, people to see them cry. They feel as though it's a weakness. They don't want to see people when they're sad, right? They want to bottle these things up inside them, or they want to go into the bathroom, right, and have a moment with themselves, but not letting other people into that experience. And I feel like when you do that, you're missing out on life, really living life. And so, again, when the writer is saying this was a brave man, definitely he was brave, especially during this time, to actually express this openly, that years later, centuries later, that people are still reading about this. It's not something that where he went, to a forum and he expressed this and then people talked about it and some people remembered and they passed it on. No, this is in black and white. Black and white. And so it is living on from century to century. No one is going to forget about this brave man who decided to express his emotions in reference to how he was grieving. I mean, that's pretty brave, right? Just think about it a second. Would you want people to be talking about how you went through the grieving process for centuries to come? Or anything in your life, right? It's like, what do you want to be known for, right, when you pass on, when you go to the other side? Because the thing about this is that we will all die one day. And some people are okay with hearing that and digesting it, chewing it, all of that good stuff. And then some people want to spit it out. It's sour to the mouth. They do not want to go through pain. They don't want to go through sorrow, let alone think about death. That their days on earth will soon be over whenever. Okay, let me not use the word soon. Okay, I apologize. Their days on the earth will be gone. At some point, we are not living forever on this earth. And so it's going to come to an end. And so you have to ask yourself, can I deal with that? Those that we've come into relationship with, it's going to end. Somebody's going to leave before the other person. When you think about the loss of a job, it might end before you're ready for it. And I think that that's what a lot of people are going through, is that they were not ready for it. They weren't ready for it, right? And so it's making you feel some type of way. You're angry, you're resentful, right? And some of you might be glad about it. Some of you might be still in shock about it, where you're stagnant and you just can't make any movement. The interesting thing is that I was reading this article, right? And it was talking about how there is some, I don't want to say, okay, let me rephrase that. That the administration is now admitting that they have let go too many government employees. And one person that was interviewed said that they hope that those that will be asked to come back will not be resentful to the point where they will not accept the job. And I thought about that. I would hope too that an individual is not still in the phase of resentment, that they have moved on. And also not taking that anger out on the actual agency within itself, or the people that may still be there at the agency, because they had no control. They have no control over what happened. I mean, people were going rogue. Okay, the administration was going rogue. They were not following any type of laws, okay, guidance, right, memos, union agreements. They weren't following any of those things at all. They were just going rogue. And so where do you, as a person that may be having this resentment, and then you get asked to come back, then you're like, yeah, no, I'm not playing these games, right? So you got to ask yourself, do I really want to go back into that space to do that particular career? I mean, I've seen some people, out there on LinkedIn, and they talked about how they wanted to serve, right, the public by this way, this, that, whatever. So if you're given that opportunity again, will you still do it again? right? Will you still do it again? So it's almost like bringing the dead back to life. And some people want to bring the dead back to life. You might have the opportunity to actually do that. So do you take it, or you just let it be dead? That's something to chew on. That's something to chew on. Just something to really think about. And so that's basically telling you, like, okay, yeah, this is how this book goes. But one thing that he talks about in this grief is talking about the person, going to the places where there's memories, right? There was connection. There was, I remember when the person fell off the bench and tipped the bench over or whatever. Just little things like that. Like being able to go back, right, to those places and be okay at that place. Or be okay with going back to that restaurant or eating that type of food or going back into that organization, building, or whatever the case may be. Do you know that I literally had to, again, you're going through the grieving process. I had to force myself to go to an event, right, to a certain building. So I wanted to know where I was at with this. I wanted to know where I was at and how I would feel. So I purposely went because I needed to know where I was at in this. I needed to know, was I really okay? I know I'm saying that I'm okay. I know I'm saying it's all good. But when I get in a situation and I see certain people, am I really okay? Am I really okay? And so I had to do that for myself. And you got to ask yourself, what is it that you need to do, right, to carry you through, right, to make these steps to get you through the grieving process? Because the thing about grief is that you don't need to stay in this same place because it will hinder you from living. Yes, you might be living like there's blood running through your veins, but you're really not living because you're making decisions based off of the grief. You're making decisions based off the grief. And so you want to go through the stages of grief to get you to a place where you're healthy enough to go back to those certain things, or to listen to certain things, or to do certain things. And if you're still not able to do that, you got to ask yourself, why not? Again, we're not putting a time stamp on it, but you have to ask yourself, why am I unable to do this particular thing? So just, I say this thing about holidays with me, it just is. It's just another conversation, right? If we want to dive into it. But I'm not really big on holidays. And people have asked me over the years, is it because y'all really didn't celebrate holidays, or because, and I was like, no, we celebrated holidays, but maybe because it just wasn't this big to do. I don't know, but I just feel like certain holidays we should be doing all the time. Like when it comes to Valentine's Day, we should be doing that all the time, right? Mother's Day, celebrating, honoring mothers all the time. Father's Day, celebrating, honoring all the time. We should be doing these things all the time, right? So why does it have to be like a day? So you do this for a day and then you forget about the person after that? You stop honoring them after that? Do I have to get you flowers just because it's Mother's Day? No. Do I have to get you a watch just because it's Father's Day? No. If I see something and I want to celebrate you, then I'm going to do it regardless of what day it is. Okay, that's just me. Like I said, that's a whole nother conversation. But because we are trained, right, in our society to move about on these holidays, that, it is just what it is, right? Anywho, so again, if you're not able to go, back to these certain places, and I think I brought that up because When every time Father's Day comes around, right? As I get older, I'm realizing, right, that I'm doing good. I'm doing, like, there was a part of me where I couldn't even say the word father when it came to another man. That doesn't make sense. Like, what I mean by that is, if my mother had got married, I could not call this man my father. I just couldn't. Right? And she got married twice. And both times I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And then, you know, when it comes to spiritual covering and things like that, and you hear people say, you know, my spiritual father, this and that, whatever. I couldn't get with it. I couldn't get with it. Right? So, because there was a loss there for me. There was a loss there, right? And so that loss, in a natural sense, has not been fulfilled. Spiritually, yes, but in a natural sense, it has not. And so as I get older, again, I'm going through certain processes where, okay, now I can say, now I have language for that. Now I can work through that. Now I understand, you know, why I moved the way I did when it came to relationships, even the way I looked at other, you know, the opposite sex, you know, all of these things, right? Based upon that. Because there was a loss there. You see, I'm talking about how this is not just about death, right? Like an actual natural death, but it is a death of a thing. That when we experience loss, we go through some type of grief. Like even when Muscle passes away, and those of you that know me, I just be like, yeah, well, Muscle's gone or whatever. Like even when he's passed away, although he's not my dog, but he's been with us for years. Am I going to grieve a bit? Probably so. Probably so. And in that grieving, though, I will make sure I sell these things, these doggy things. So, but seriously though, like you're gonna go through some type of, you know, some type of grief in that, right? And it's an animal, right? So if someone loses their cat, their parrot, their lizard, right? These are all true emotions that we feel when we are losing something that is dear to us. That is dear to us. So, you know, I encourage you, right, to get the book if you are grieving, if you know someone that is grieving. I encourage you to get this book. He also talked about, you know, being able to talk to the children. So this person, I guess I didn't explain. So this person actually lost their wife, right? And he was just talking about not being able to talk to the children, right, about their mother. But then when he would start talking about their mother, like he couldn't stop talking about their mother. But then on the other side, it's just kind of like the kids are looking at him like, can you stop? Like we've had enough, right? So it was like this, you know, this up and down, right? When it came to that, right? I can't talk about this person. But then when I start to talk about this person, I can't stop talking about this person. Like this is all normal, right? Even to the point where, you know, he questions his faith. He questions, you know, God. Like, you know, people that want to sprinkle, you know, the as they say, the Jesus glitter or whatever the case may be, you know, Lord's will be done. You know, I've heard messages and, you know, people talk about, you know, the his will, right, and being centered in that. And I get that. I get that. But the thing that I was centered in, not so much of God's will when it came to my mother. I think I was more centered in the fact of we will all live and we will all die. We will all live and we will all die one day. If we have been birthed into the earth, then we shall die in the earth. I was grounded in that to the point where I was just like, it's your time. Based on these factors, it's your time. Right? And so I was, you know, I was okay with that. Is there times where I miss her? Yes. Because just the other day, I was just, laying there. I was like, Mom, I miss you. Because she would be the person that I would call literally in my mobile office, right? So even though she would say, just some off the wall stuff and do some things, but I loved her, and she definitely was my friend outside of being my mother. And just to always make sure that she knew that that I would come to her for things. Sometimes I would ask her stuff just to be asking. I didn't really need the answer, but I just would. To keep her involved, right, in my life. I did that, right, because I loved her, right, and she's just, that type of person. And so, but I would say, like, yeah, Mom, I miss you. I would say it out loud. Mom, I miss you. At this moment, I would call you right now. And I remember sharing that with someone, and they were like, oh, well, you can call me anytime you want to talk to your mom. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I tried it a couple of times. It's not the same. It's not the same. And so I had to be okay with that as well. It's not the same. It's not the same. But anyway, so yeah, go get the book. It's a lot more in here than what I just shared, but it was a really good, quick read about just sharing your heart when it comes to grief, right? No matter whether it's been, 3 months to 40 plus years in something, we're all going to grieve, not once, but more than we can count. We will go through some grief here on this earth. And so I think it's important that we have the tools that we need to go through our grief and to be honest about it. All right, so until next time, right, do know that leading is teachable. This is part of leading your life, people. This is part of leading your life. Just remember that. This is part of leading your life. Leading is teachable. I love you. There's nothing that you can do about it. Until next time.